This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno. Welcome to We Are Change Fresno with your hosts, Stuart Webb and Sam Cheney, fighting the international bankers' one world government scientific dictatorship. Be the change you want to see in the world. And now, here's your hosts.
Welcome to We Are Change Fresno. This is a week 19 of our broadcast, and we have a very special guest for you. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Cheney, along with our producer, Woody.
Hello, Radio World.
This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM, and we have a special guest for the first hour. His name's Mark Crutcher. He's the producer of MAFA 21. It's a documentary regarding the history of black eugenics, and he is from Life Dynamics. Mark, how are you doing today?
Just fine, sir. How are you?
We're doing okay. We're doing as good as we can, trying to fight tyranny and everything that's going on here and across the globe. We're doing our best, but we appreciate your work and we appreciate you joining us. Sam, I know you have a lot of questions for Mark. You want to get it going?
Yeah, how you doing, Mark?
Fine, sir. How are you?
So yeah, just to let you know, I found out about your work through InfoWars, Alex Jones show, and I really appreciate your work. It's very detailed, a lot of important research in your film. So you want to just jump right into the interview and explain what does MAFA mean?
Well, MAFA is it's a Swahili word, and it means a time of tragedy or horrific events or whatever. It's generally in the Swahili language used to describe the time during which Africans were enslaved in North America. Much like the word Holocaust is used. I mean, that's not a proper noun normally, but it's the name that's come to be known as the what describes the Nazi Holocaust against the Jews. Maafa is the name that's used in Africa to define the time of African enslavement in America. 21 relates to the 21st century because our concept is that the Maafa did not end when slavery ended; that it continues to this day.
And so your film is about eugenics, correct?
Well, yeah, basically that's true. What we did is, of course, we're a pro-life organization, and we were looking at the issue. I have always known that this concept of abortion being legalized as a component of women's rights or reproductive freedom or choice or any of that stuff, those are all marketing slogans. The reality behind the legalization of abortion was eugenics. It was a continuation of a eugenics program that started right before the end of slavery in America. And I had always known that, and we decided in 2006 we would start doing the research to do this documentary. We researched it for 3 years. It took 3 years to do the research and write the script for it because it was a very detailed, very complicated concept to put together. And so it took us quite a while to do it. But what we did is we started looking at the relationship between eugenics and abortion, starting with the legalization of abortion and going backwards. And I really thought at the beginning that there would be a point at which the chain would be broken, and that would be basically the beginning of eugenics as it relates to the legalization of abortion. What we actually discovered was that this chain goes all the way back to, as I said a moment ago, the days before the end of slavery. And what happened was that most civilized nations on this earth had already outlawed slavery by the 1850s. Including our two closest neighbors, Mexico and Canada. And the handwriting was on the wall. It was just a matter of time before slavery would be ended in the United States. Nobody knew at the time how it was going to come about, but it was pretty obvious that it was going to come about at some point. And the wealthy white elitists, and I'm not talking about every white person in America, I'm talking about basically the ultra wealthy,
Yeah.
and not even just the wealthy, but the ultra wealthy, who had almost without exception all made their fortunes on the backs of slaves. They started to be concerned about what was going to happen when you freed these people you freed 4 million slaves into a country that was much smaller then than it is today. And their concern was what the economic impact of this was going to be. And they were convinced that, and they were, to some degree, not only were they correct about this, but they were responsible for it. They had kept 4 million people basically unemployable anywhere but the cotton field. And so they were concerned that when you released them, the crime rate was going to go up, the welfare cost to take care of them was going to skyrocket. These people would not be able to get jobs unless we're willing to let them just starve in the streets. Then there was going to be an economic chaos in America. And so they began to look for ways to get rid of them, basically, once slavery was over. And, of course, the first thought that they had was what's called colonization, which was to send all the slaves back to Africa. There were several problems with that idea, but the idea had wide-ranging acceptance. Abraham Lincoln had backed it. The United States Congress actually funded the project to send slaves back to Africa and establish. That's how Liberia was established as a nation in Africa. But they eventually figured out it was unworkable. There was no real mechanism to force 4 million people to go back to Africa, especially at a time when most of them had never been to Africa. Most of the slaves at that time were born in the United States.
Yeah.
So how do you force people to go back to a country they never were in to begin with? And also, you can't, to get these 4 million people that were enslaved at the time took, a couple hundred years. How do you put all 4 million of those people now on ships that you don't have and ship them back? So it was just an unworkable solution. The interesting thing is that about the time the colonization effort was being discounted and found to be unworkable, a new philosophy was emerging in the United States called eugenics. And that name did not even exist until it was basically a name that was made up during that time to describe this philosophy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Mark, can you explain, I guess you're getting into it, what exactly eugenics is for our audience that's not familiar with that term?
Yes. The father of eugenics was a man named Francis Galton.
Mm-hmm.
And his family he was extraordinarily wealthy, and his family had made its money in the slave trade. And he came up with this idea of having to do something about these enslaved people when they were released, and he was the one that came up with the eugenics idea. He's actually the first cousin of Charles Darwin, and he and Charles basically Francis Galton was going to put into effect what Charles Darwin was proposing. And one of the things that Charles Darwin had theorized was that if you believe that man came from monkeys, that man evolved from the monkey or from the primate, and if you look at that as a continuum, which they did, and Darwin's argument was that if you look at the lowest form of human being, which they said was the Aborigine and the African, if you look at them and you look at the highest form of primate, which they said was the gorilla, that there was very little difference between the two of them, and that the wider you could make that gap, the better you could make humanity. And the idea was you get rid of the people who are closest to that gap, and humanity will be profited from that. And Francis Galton actually took this philosophy from his first cousin, Charles Darwin, and said, we can put this into practice, and that's what became known as eugenics. Initially, they believed that blacks were inherently inferior to whites in every regard, not just mentally, but physically and so forth, and that they couldn't survive as a race of people. And their first idea was what's called passive eugenics. in that they were just going to say, we'll just leave them alone, and because they can't survive without our help, they'll die out. Well, it didn't work because it was based on the false theory that they're inferior. The second thing, that went from passive eugenics to what was called positive eugenics.
And then, but Mark, real quick, the reason they came up with these theories was to justify their enslavement of these people, right?
No.
No?
It was to justify the elimination of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. It was to get rid of them.
Yeah.
The second idea was what's called positive eugenics, which meant that they would encourage whites to have more children than blacks and basically overwhelm them eventually just by in sheer numbers, and that blacks would die out and the whites would, and we'd be rid of them. Well, that didn't work either. So they went to what was called negative eugenics. And negative eugenics was the idea that, okay, they don't die out on their own. We can't overwhelm them because our people are limiting their families more than they are, so we're not going to overwhelm them with numbers, so we've got to start eliminating them. And so they started applying what was called negative eugenics to the black population, trying to encourage them to have fewer and fewer children. This continued on, and you started having large organizations being funded by these multi-billionaires from the 1800s, and it continued on until you had an organization called the American Birth Control League that was founded, and it was founded and run by a woman named Margaret Sanger.
Yep.
And she was funded by all these ultra-wealthy elitists, and they continued on with the negative eugenics of trying to limit the black population. That continued on, and their primary method of doing that eventually was sterilization. And you actually had sterilization boards in 33 American states. You had state eugenics, literally state eugenics boards in 33 American states, and the last one wasn't put out of business until 1984. So
Wow.
that was in Oregon. That was the last one. So that's how long this project lasted. The problem that they got into was that in the early 1960s, late 50s and early 60s, you started having federal courts rule that these state eugenics boards and these state sterilization boards, and by the way, they sterilized hundreds of thousands of people, predominantly, of course, black.
But whoever they classified as feeble-minded, criminal, poor.
And criminals and feeble-minded and uneducatable and unemployable, all these other labels that they would put on them to justify sterilizing them. And very often these sterilizations were done forcibly and sometimes without the person's knowledge. We had somebody interviewed in the documentary, I'm sure you remember Elaine Riddick.
Yeah, it's a famous case, yeah.
Yep, who was sterilized without her knowledge and didn't know about it until later on when she tried to get pregnant after she got married and couldn't get pregnant and went to the doctor and found out that she had been sterilized. And that was in North Carolina, and that was happening all over the country, but you actually had farms in Indiana, for example. You had these farms where they put people and sterilized them. This went on until the federal courts in the late 50s and early 60s started ruling that these state eugenics boards were unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was unconstitutional. And the eugenics movement in America started to be concerned that they were about to lose their primary mechanism for eradicating the minority population by losing sterilization. And at that point, many of them then started calling for the legalization of abortion.
Yep.
And this was picked up on pretty early by a lot of black leaders in America. Surprisingly, today, for people to may find this surprising, one of the first ones was Jesse Jackson. We have a quote in there from him where he said, it's awful strange to me that these people who didn't want legalized abortion, when we started getting our rights, all of a sudden they started wanting legalized abortion and putting their clinics in our neighborhoods. We even had a man that used to work for for Planned Parenthood, Dr. Greenlee, a black physician who thought Planned Parenthood was a good organization, thought he was trying to help the black community, and he discovered that what their agenda was to eradicate blacks. And we have a lot of documentation about that in the documentary, in the film as well.
And how many blacks have been killed through abortion since abortion's become legal?
Well, let me just give you some numbers here. And we've done additional research since the movie came out on what we call racial targeting and population control, where they locate all these abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood facilities.
Oh, yeah.
Is overwhelmingly in black communities.
Yeah, and poor communities. I mean, I see it in poor communities, the most rundown areas. That's where they set up shop.
They're going after that group of people.
Yeah.
Since abortion's been legalized, and we found a very neat study, very interesting study that even was sponsored by some groups associated with the abortion lobby back in the 60s. And what they found was that when abortion is illegal, whites have abortion at a rate 5 times as high as blacks.
Yeah.
But when it's legal, then you can concentrate your marketing in the black community and turn that around.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is that today, black women make up about 12% of the American female population, but they have almost 40% of the abortions.
Wow.
In some parts of the United States, you now actually have more black babies aborted than born. New York City recently released a report on this and showing that for every 10 pregnancies to black women in New York City, 6 are aborted. And if you start looking at the, like I said, we did a report since we released my Alpha 21 called Racial Targeting and Population Control, and you can go online and read the report for free at prolifeamerica.com. And what we looked at was we took all of the zip codes in the United States where there are population control facilities, such as Planned Parenthood, and abortion clinics, either independent abortion clinics or Planned Parenthood abortion clinics. We took all their zip codes, and let me make sure you understand this. This is not our opinion. These are figures, statistics from the federal government. We took them from the U.S. Census Bureau. We looked at all those zip codes and looked at the percentage of minority population, black population in those zip codes, and then compared it to the surrounding areas and to the state as a whole. And what you clearly see if you look at that report is that these facilities are exactly what the eugenicists talked about back in the 40s and 50s that they were going to do, and that was concentrate them in minority communities. And that's exactly what's happened.
And we see it in the writings of the American Birth Control League, right? I mean, they put it all on record about their plan to carry out this depopulation agenda.
Well, depopulation in certain groups, not across the board. They were actually calling for whites, and especially well-to-do whites, to have more children, not fewer. They weren't trying to control their populations. Only a few poor whites, but overwhelmingly blacks. And as I say, black women now make up about 12% of the female population in America, and they have almost 40% of the abortions. And so what they set in motion back in actually this all started in the 1850s. What started then as the eugenics movement and continued on with population control through the American Birth Control League, which, by the way, most people probably don't know this, American Birth Control League still exists. They just changed their name. Their name is Planned Parenthood. American Birth Control League changed its name in 1943 because of the Nazis. Birth control had taken on such a horrific odor that they thought it was a bad name, the American Birth Control League, so they changed their name to Planned Parenthood.
And so you want to get into that a little bit, Mark, about how Hitler and the Nazis got a lot of their philosophy about the population control and the Holocaust and whatnot from America?
Absolutely. The Nazis, we have a lot of documentation in the movie about this, and we found a lot more than we actually used. You can't, you have to draw the line somewhere. But the the Nazi Party policies that basically led to the Holocaust were created at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, which was funded by the Carnegie Foundation here in America and the Rockefeller Foundation. You had people there who were openly stating that their population control methods were learned from the American birth control movement, and they were basically going to implement them there. And we found tons of documentation on this, and it's interesting that I told you earlier about these camps that had been set up in Indiana to
sterilize.
Is going to be basically a place where what they call the feeble-minded and the dysgenic types could be segregated from society and eventually sterilized into oblivion. That model was used by a man named Eugen Fischer, who was a Nazi, to set up concentration camps in Africa. And there were actually concentration camps before the Germans started moving them into Germany and into Europe. There were actually concentration camps set up in Africa by this man named Eugen Fischer, who modeled them by his own writings, according to the things that he published, after the stuff that was being done in the United States. And those camps in Africa became the models, and they did almost exactly the same things in those camps in Africa that the Germans eventually did in Europe. And Eugen Fischer, Margaret Sanger from Planned Parenthood, actually had an international conference on population control in which she invited Eugen Fischer to be a spokesperson after it was well known that he was basically the architect for the Nazi concentration camps.
Wow, that's a lot of scrubbed history. It seems like from our mainstream history that we get in public education here in America.
Yeah, we don't hear any coverage of it. This is most of this information. I mean, not all of it, but a lot of this information that you're talking about is not common knowledge to the American public or really anyone that I know. So, what is it? Because they changed their name to Planned Parenthood? I mean, is this the Orwellian society that we live in? Is that we'll just change our name to Planned Parenthood, even though it's completely the opposite, and we'll just put them in poor communities and eradicate certain races? I mean, how are they doing this without people really throwing a fit about it? I mean, it's all right there in front of us, but it's not. Is it the way it's marketed? How are they getting away with this?
Well, you have to understand something. The American population control movement and the eugenics movement, and now the abortion lobby, has a stranglehold control over the American media. Yeah. And the American people do not. All the information that we have here is readily available to anybody who wanted to go out and study it. We didn't uncover anything that's not known.
It's all public. It's just not covered in the media, right? Because the media is just told, you can't talk about this. Planned Parenthood is good. There's no such thing as eugenics, and right. I mean, it's just not covered. If
the American media doesn't cover something, the American people don't know it.
Yeah.
And so they know what they're told. And they're never going to tell this story. I mean, if this was the Klan doing this, the Klan, when you start looking at, and this is one of the things we stumbled across, and by the way, Margaret Sanger was a spokesman for the Klan, was a speaker at Klan events.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, Silver Lake, New Jersey was one of them we found where she was a speaker, and she was, after that speech in Silver Lake, New Jersey, she says in her autobiography, she says that they must have really liked what I said because 12 other groups came up to me after the speech and invited me to speak for them. Now, we could find nothing to say where she had spoken at any of the other groups, but she's bragging about it in her autobiography, so she must have been okay with the fact that she was being a spokesman for the Klan. But if the Klan, imagine this for a moment. Let's say that the Ku Klux Klan came out today and said, look, we've raised several $1 million, and there's these abortion clinics that are having trouble staying open, and they're closing all over the country, which is true. we're going to start a chain of abortion clinics. And so they're going to do this as what they might call a public good, right?
Yeah.
And let's say that 3 years from now, 60 Minutes stumbled upon the fact that a disproportionate number of these facilities were located in black communities. Do you think they would do a story on that?
Well, yeah, they would. They probably should if that was. But that's what you're saying is that is basically what's happening, but they're not covering it, right? It basically is ultra wealthy elite racists, basically, that want to eradicate a certain group. But yeah, the media would probably cover that, right? Because it would be a racial issue, because the Klan is not popular, right?
It'd be politically correct. Right?
There you go. That's the word. I'm sorry. Yeah, politically correct. It would be politically correct to cover it in the media.
And it's not politically correct to go after Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
And you now have a cadre out there of ultra-wealthy elitists who are still doing this, people like Bill and Melinda Gates. They give literally billions, with a B, of dollars into the eugenics movement. You've got people like Warren Buffett, who gives hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money and then raises billions of dollars from others to give. This man spends between $50 and $100 million a year, every year, of his own money to recruit and train people to work in abortion clinics. So if anybody thinks that this is something that we researched, this is interesting, but this went on back in the 1850s, or maybe it lasted up until the 1940s, but all that's gone. This is still happening as you and I sit right here now. This is going on. And, one of the interesting things we discovered, if you want to see the role that the media plays in this, when we first, I told you we started with the legalization of abortion in 73 and went backwards. One of the things that we discovered is when we got back to the early 70s and then into the mid-60s, and that, say, from 1963, 64 up until 71 or 72, the people that were the most attuned to this, most knowledgeable about it, were organizations like the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam. If I were to say to you, where are the origins of the pro-life movement in America? I mean, it'd be easy to say, well, organizations like National Right to Life or American Life League or whoever. I mean, you just name the pro-life group. The actual first organizations that were opposing the legalization of abortion were the Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, and other what were at the time called radical civil rights groups.
Yeah.
And individuals, people like Eldridge Cleaver. For those of you who are old enough to have gone through that time, Eldridge Cleaver was one of the movers and shakers in the civil rights movement. He was adamantly pro-life. He ran for Congress later as a pro-lifer. Stokely Carmichael, who was one of the most radical people, Stokely Carmichael is actually the guy who coined the term Black Panthers. He's the guy who made that term up. He made a speech about eugenics and the use of abortion and birth control to eradicate the black population in Washington, D.C., the week after Martin Luther King was killed. There were riots in Washington, D.C., and I don't know how many people remember that, but there were riots in Washington at the time, and he was one of the speakers at one of these events, and during that speech started talking about how they're going to use abortion and birth control. They couldn't eliminate us from the population. Now they're going to come after us with abortion and birth control. Elijah Muhammad wrote a book called A Message to the Black Man in America. Mm-hmm. And he had 2 chapters in that book about how they were going to use birth control and abortion to come after the black population. One of the most interesting things we stumbled across that I had never heard before was a very interesting situation with a man named Samuel Yett, Y-E-T-T-E. Now, this man was a decorated officer in the United States Air Force, served in Korea. He had a journalism degree from the University of Indiana in, I just got a mental blank where Indiana University is located. Anyway, He had a journalism degree from there. He had a master's degree from Howard University, Bloomington, Indiana. Anyway, very accomplished man. He was hired by Newsweek magazine. He was their first black reporter at Newsweek magazine. Very talented, very accomplished, and he rose to become the head of the Washington bureau at Newsweek magazine. Now, that's a pretty high up post. He wrote a book called The Choice. In that book, he talked about how abortion was being used to eradicate the black population. They instantly fired him and told him during his exit interview. Now, Mr. Yett just died about a year and a half ago, and you can go online and see an interview with him, and he says that he was told during his exit interview when he was fired that the Nixon White House had ordered him to be fired. He was told, get this man out of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And, of course, we have in the movie an actual tape of Nixon talking about the use of abortion in order to eradicate the black population. And Samuel Yett comes up here and writes a book about that. He's the Washington bureau chief for Newsweek magazine, and literally the week after his book was published, he was brought in and fired, and his publisher dropped him, even though his book was already being used in universities around the country as a textbook, and it was selling very well. Now, he republished it several years later using his own money, and I have copies of the original. I have copies of the one he republished. But this man was fired because he dared to say exactly what was going on with abortion and eugenics, and he was fired by Richard Nixon.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we know who who funds the media and controls the media, and that's the ultra rich. People like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they have tax-exempt foundations. That's how they are so rich, and they also, I mean, you just basically got to put a Klan uniform on them, and that's what they are. They're without the white robe. And so
they're just less honest than the guy who wears the white robe.
Exactly, and they are they're absolute criminals, and they need to be exposed. But it's amazing the control and propaganda in the media, and they don't want this information out. But folks, we got to take a quick break. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Do you love supporting local businesses? Do you want to help them succeed? So do we. The Thrifty Nickel Want Ads is a family-owned business that has been a big part of the local community for over 30 years. Our goal is not only to produce a paper that is not only successful, but enduring. We are looking for experienced outside sales representatives to help grow and expand the Central Valley's favorite classified paper while creating successful marketing campaigns that will increase business for their clients. If you care about better working relationships with local businesses, then we want to hear from you. 50% commission of every new contract acquired. If interested, contact Art at thriftynickelwantads.com or call 559-472-7182.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You will love it.
We all know that a natural disaster, EMP attack, and martial law are a real possibility. Prepare before the crisis because FEMA can't and won't keep you safe. Tops Military Supply. Veterans serving veterans, their families, and the community. Visit us at 605 West Shaw, Suite A, Clovis, California, or call us at 559-298-6001.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM here in Fresno. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Chaney. Here, we're getting back to our interview with Mark Crutcher, producer of MAFA 21. It's about black eugenics in America. the first part of the interview, we covered a lot of stuff. Mark's very knowledgeable about this subject of black eugenics in America, the history of it. And this information is not going to be heard on your local mainstream media outlet. Okay, this is real stuff that's documented, like he said in the first part of the interview. It's all available. It's just not being covered, but it's going on. So, Mark, could you get back into why the black community is not talking about this more? I mean, Jesse Jackson, back when abortion became legal, he seemed to be definitely against it, but he's not talking about it now. He's not talking about how it's a plan to eradicate blacks. Why is he not talking about that?
Well, Jesse Jackson's a con artist, a shakedown artist. And Jesse Jackson was initially one of the people, like Eldridge Cleaver and Stokely Carmichael and Elijah Muhammad and all the rest of them, who was out here beating this drum and saying, look, this is outrageous. We can't be falling for this. They're going to eradicate us with abortion. They're going to eradicate us with birth control. They're going to target all our neighborhoods, which is exactly what was happening back in the 60s and continues to this day. But the problem was that, unlike some of these other guys, Jesse Jackson had political ambitions.
Yeah.
And he decided he wanted to be president of the United States, and he was going to run as a Democrat. And by the time he had made that decision, the population control crowd had taken complete control of the Democratic Party, which they still own to this day.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is basically a functionary of the population control movement.
Isn't the Democratic Party a co-founder of the Ku Klux Klan?
I don't know about that. But
oh, okay.
I would doubt it. But anyway, the Jesse Jacksons of the world decided, and particularly him in particular, I want to be president. I'm going to run as a Democrat. I know, I've been sat down and told that the only way to run as a Democrat is to be pro-abortion. So I'll sell my own people down the river if that's what it takes, and that's what he's done, and he's done it many, many times. I mean, this guy is a con artist, a down artist, and basically Jesse Jackson cares nothing about anything more than he cares about Jesse Jackson.
Of course. It's like Al Sharpton was an FBI informant. I mean, he was a snitch. He'll do whatever for the establishment to gain political points or to just to be successful at any level. I mean, you're right. They don't care about their community or blacks in a sense. They care about themselves, and they are con artists. They use their pasts to skyrocket them politically, and then they run on this. Abortion's great. It's a civil right. I mean, how are they packaging it as a civil right? Being able to kill your own child. It's so Orwellian. Planned Parenthood is where you go to get abortions. It's not planning to be a parent. It's killing your baby. It's so Orwellian. How are they doing this?
They're doing it because they have the support of the media.
There you go.
Let me tell you something. If you can go into the library and you can check out a book called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. You can check out a book, The Rise and Fall of the Greek Empire. Someday, somebody's going to write a book. Whenever I don't know when. I'm not predicting the end of America. I'm just saying someday it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
Someday somebody's going to write a book, The Rise and Fall of the American Empire.
Yes.
And if they're honest, I think that more than any other factor that will cause the destruction of this country, it's the abject dishonesty and incompetence of the American media.
Yeah.
Because what I call the godless left in this country, if they can call us the Christian right, then we can call them the godless left. But the godless left in this country figured out something starting in the 1920s when Roger Baldwin was running the ACLU. These guys figured out something, and that is that if you get the media on your side, they'll quit looking at you.
Yeah.
They'll quit seeing what you do. They don't care what you do. Your fellow travelers at that point. And, we see examples of this all the time. I'll use the example of the Trayvon Martin situation. This man gets killed, and I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. And they didn't know what happened. Al Sharptons and Jesse Jacksons didn't know what happened either. But they showed up down there because that made good political theater.
Yeah.
That this black kid may have been killed by this white guy, and nothing was going to happen. That made good political theater. But in Chicago, just a few months later, a beautiful 18-year-old young lady goes into a Planned Parenthood facility for an abortion, and they murdered her. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but let me tell you what happened. They perforated this young lady's uterus and tore her cervix,
Jeez.
perforated her lower intestine, and she started hemorrhaging. And this all came out in their medical board hearing. She started hemorrhaging. But they had other botched abortions at this place, and ambulances showing up. This is a Planned Parenthood in Chicago. And they didn't want the PR hit they were going to take from this young lady being put in an ambulance. So they rolled her into the hallway and went about their business. Kept checking on her. She's hemorrhaging. They keep packing her off. They let her sit there for 5.5 hours. And finally, somebody said, I guess we're going to have to call an ambulance. We just don't have any choice. Well, she was dead at the emergency room. Her name is Tanya Reeves. Now, I said a moment ago, now you might be thinking, well, that's a malpractice thing, but it's not murder. If you read the Illinois statute on what's called depraved indifference murder, it reads like it was written for this case. They had reason to believe that this woman was going to bleed to death, but for their own purposes, they didn't seek emergency care for her. This is a classic depraved indifference murder conviction right here, if anybody wanted to go after it.
Yeah.
Where is Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. And they kill two birds with one stone, right? They're trying to get rid of black people. Come in for an abortion, and we'll kill both of you. It's just absolutely awful. And the media doesn't cover it. You're right. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, where are they? They're nowhere to be found. And you know what? Barack Obama, our own president, will never say anything bad about Planned Parenthood because that's one of his political platforms.
Well, he spoke at one of their annual conventions the year after he was put in office, the year before he was put in office, and said that what Planned Parenthood does is something that's absolutely vital to the black community. He sat right out there and lied through his teeth. He knew he was lying when he said it. And now it's just like what we saw with the Obamacare. When he kept saying Obamacare will be prohibited from paying for abortion. Now, we all knew that was a lie when he was saying it. It was very easy to know that he was lying because if he was telling the truth, all he would have needed to do was to put a one-paragraph line somewhere in this 22,000-page document that says nothing in Obamacare can ever be construed as making it legal to pay for elective abortion. You put that in there, that's the end of the deal. So why didn't they, if that was the truth, why didn't they put it in there? So we knew they were lying, and now they're admitting that it does pay for abortion. There's over 100 different places now, according to the GAO, in which abortion can be paid for in Obamacare. So we knew they were lying all along. He knew he was lying when he talked to Planned Parenthood. And so now we're going to have government-funded abortions. We're all going to be paying for them through Obamacare. And that's going to do nothing but get worse and worse and worse if this thing is not overturned. Let me tell you something.
Go ahead, Mark.
Obamacare was a bailout program for the American abortion industry. That's what it is, a stimulus package for the American abortion industry.
Wow, that's pretty sick of them, and it's also a bailout for the insurance companies. They helped write it. Mark, I liked your interviews in the film, the Man on the Street interviews, where you asked African Americans, what is the number one cause of death? Is it AIDS, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, violent crime? Those are some of the answers you got, but none of those are the leading cause of death. What is the leading cause of death for African Americans in America, Mark?
It is by far abortion. Abortion kills more African Americans in America today than all those other things combined. You add them all up, they don't even come close to how many African Americans are killed in abortion mills. Like I said, in some places you have more African Americans being killed in the womb that are being born.
It's incredible. So whose issue should abortion be? Because we have the liberal type people that say, well, it's a women's right to choose, and so how do we counter that argument from them?
To choose what?
To choose.
Yeah, I know. We have to ask them to choose what.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. That's how you counter it. I think that's great. Yeah, choosing to murder your own child. I mean, is that a civil right? We have to ask them. We have to make them tell us what is their right, right? Because then they have to actually answer the question.
Well, first off, I mean, these people like to posit themselves as the intellectual side of this argument.
Yeah.
But they can't even speak in complete sentences. I support a woman's right to choose. That's not a complete sentence.
Yeah.
To choose what?
Yeah.
It's just talking points.
If you're saying I'm pro-choice, every activity that a human being does is a choice. If you rob a 7-Eleven store, that's a choice. If you rape somebody, that's a choice. If you murder somebody, that's a choice. So if you're going to say I'm pro-choice, then you either have to tell us what choice you're talking about, describe it, which they don't want to do, or then you have to say, then I think people ought to be allowed to do anything they want to do, since everything people do is a choice. It's an absolutely illogical and completely dishonest position to take. But they understand that they have never been able to escape the stigma of abortion, and they're never going to. The stigma of abortion is higher today than it was the day Roe versus Wade was handed down, because we know more about it. You have to understand something. Every piece of technology that's come along since abortion was legalized has favored us, every single piece. And when you look at, for example, just sonograms, when Roe versus Wade was handed down and started this American Holocaust, no one in the history of the world had ever seen an unborn child. Now, every third grader's seen one. And what's happened is this has increased the stigma on abortion considerably over what it was then, and they thought it was going to go away. You can find writings from the days immediately after Roe versus Wade where the pro-aborts were saying, well, at least one thing that will happen is this will remove the stigma from abortion, and we can mainline it in American culture and in medicine. That's never happened, and it's never going to happen. The pro-life movement's going to make certain that it never happens. But,
well, Mark, that leads into they now consider abortion an industry. It's not a civil right; it's an industry now, right?
Well, certainly it is. And you look at the things that are happening here in Texas as a result of the legislation we passed here that said abortion clinics now basically have to meet the same medical standards of other outpatient surgery centers in Texas, and they have fought this tooth and nail, and they've lost at every level so far. When that law was passed, we were down to something like 41 or 42. I can't remember if it's 41 or 42 freestanding abortion clinics in the state of Texas, and that was down considerably from what it had been in previous years. Today there are 7. In less than 2 years, because these facilities have been required to meet the same medical standards as other ambulatory surgical centers, they're down from 41 or 42 to 7. That's how many are open in Texas today. The second most populous state in the union has 7 abortion clinics left. We used to have 17 abortion clinics in Dallas-Fort Worth alone.
Wow.
So they're in deep trouble, and that's why I said earlier, we could do a whole show on why the economics of why Obamacare was so crucial to these people, because it was a bailout program for the abortion industry. They're in deep trouble economically. They've got some economic problems that are horrendous for them, and we could do a whole show on that. But that's why Obamacare was so meaningful to them, and it's also one reason. You've heard about these navigators that the Obama administration has put out there, putting them on the phones and putting them going door to door trying to get people to sign up for Obamacare so it wouldn't fail. One of the navigators that Obamacare has been paying to do that is Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is an official government navigator for Obamacare, because Planned Parenthood understands that if Obamacare doesn't stay in place and if it doesn't fund abortion, Planned Parenthood is in deep trouble, and every abortion clinic in America is in deep trouble.
Mark, it's sick. I used to work in the healthcare industry here in California for covered California is what they call affordable care, Obamacare here. And it is sick the way they go about it with these navigators. And yeah, I saw them firsthand. And so that's why I had to actually get out of that industry because of this law that passed. I could no longer work there.
Yeah, Mark, I think it's great that you bring up that basically Obamacare was a stimulus package for the abortion industry because no one's looking at it like that. No one's looking at it like specifically for abortion, for eugenics. But really, that's like what you said. That's what it is. And the reason, like what you said with technology, it's very hard for people to call to act like having an abortion is not murder now, because we can see, like you said, third graders can see a baby in the womb. I mean, it has legs, it has a face, it has arms, it's a baby, it's a human. And they can't keep telling us, and children and young girls that get pregnant, that it's not a human, don't worry about it, it's not a child, it's just a blob, because it's not, it's a human.
And they know that. And this is one of the things that is so frightening to the abortion industry right now, is if you look at the demographic profile, we know it's not a secret. Even the media has had to regrettably, in their view, report on it. But there's been a teutonic shift in American public's attitudes about abortion. I mean, I went through the days when you'd see these polls coming out showing 70% and 72% of the American people label themselves pro-choice. Now there's more people that label themselves pro-life by quite a margin than label themselves pro-choice. And the problem that the abortion industry is having is a demographic problem there, because most of the people that still label themselves pro-choice are the elderly, older people. Young people are coming into the pro-life movement in numbers we have never seen before. And one of the reasons for that is there's this, and we're studying this right now. We're going to do a video on this. Young people now are starting to pick up on the fact that they are all abortion survivors, because even though their mom may or may not have considered an abortion, she could have.
Yeah.
And so if you were born after January 22nd, 1973, you're an abortion survivor.
Yes.
Your mother could have walked into one of these places and paid some goon $300 or $400 to rip you apart and flush you down a garbage disposal. And they're starting to say, you know what? Our generation has been targeted. And our generation now is 20 to 25% smaller than it would have otherwise been had it not been for the legalization of abortion. And I've had some of these kids tell me that in some of the initial conversations we've had in the past with them, that they've sat in their classrooms before and looked around and seen an empty chair and wondered who'd been sitting there. And I had a girl one time in Fort Worth. I was interviewing some kids down there, and she said, I've always kind of basically considered myself pro-choice, but I'm really having some second thoughts about it, but I've always been kind of on that side. But she said, one time I was sitting in one of my classes, and I saw an empty chair there. I was wondering, if it hadn't been for legal abortion, would my boyfriend be sitting there? Or would my best friend be sitting there, best friend I never knew? And these kids are starting to pick up on the fact that their generation has been targeted for abortion, and that they were just the lucky ones who happened to survive. And they're not buying the Kool-Aid anymore. And I'll tell you something else that's happening that I predicted many years ago in some seminars that I was doing. Because I said that technology was going to be a thing that the abortion industry was going to have a problem with. It's very hard to convince someone that an unborn child is nothing but a glob of cells, which has been one of the standard arguments that these people have used for years.
Yeah.
It's very hard to convince someone of that if they have the capability of going home and putting a VHS tape or a DVD into a machine and seeing themselves as unborn children.
Yeah. Very true, because they can see themselves. Oh, that was me. I mean, I was not some blob. I mean, we all started as that little blob, that little sperm cell. I mean, and an egg. I mean, let's be real. But we cannot people are not buying it anymore. They're not buying it because everyone realizes if they support pro-choice, well, then they support killing their own children, or they support themselves potentially being killed by their own parents before they were born, before they came out of the womb. I mean, it's just in the interest of self-preservation, we have to be pro-choice. People are starting to get it.
yes, these young people are starting to see, wait a minute, we've been lied to. We've been deceived, and especially young women are saying, this idea that the ability for me to butcher my own child is somehow the cornerstone of my rights, this is nonsense. And, this thing about, and I'm writing a new book right now, and this is going to be one of the themes of it, about this empowers women. Let me tell you something. You want to see the weakest, most subservient, most beat-down people in the world, go stand in front of an abortion clinic and look at the faces of the women going in there for abortions. Or walk into the abortion clinic and look at the faces of the women sitting there having abortions. And I challenge anyone to show me a face that looks like it's empowered, or looks like it wants to be there, or looks like that it's going to be better off when it leaves than when it came in. Show me one of those faces. They don't exist. Women going into these abortion clinics are the most beat-down, subservient people you'll ever see. Yeah. Don't give me now the women that work there, they might be empowered, but not the people that go in there and get the service.
Yeah, Mark, it's out of this world, the lies that the elite have told us, and I'm glad people are starting to finally wake up. Here in Fresno, I don't know, we're pretty asleep here. We're on a conservative talk radio, so they go after abortion a lot on this. I hope they listen to the show and they go and pick up your film at MAFA21.com. Is there any other material or any other websites or anything else that you have to plug before we end this interview?
We got about 40 seconds, so just give out your websites and where people can reach you.
We have 13 different websites, and you can reach them all by going to one. It's called ProLifeAmerica.com, and it'll get you to my Alpha 21 as well. But it's called ProLifeAmerica.com. And if you want to order the DVD, it's $9.95. If you don't, you can watch it for free at myalpha21.com. So we're not trying to make money off of it. If you don't have the money to buy it or you don't want to buy it, then you can watch it for free. But anyway, you can get to all those websites at ProLifeAmerica.com.
Thanks so much for joining us, Mark. We really appreciate it. Hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for your great research.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno. This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Chaney. If you were listening to the first hour, we just had an amazing interview with Mark Crutcher, producer of MAFA 21. You can go to his website and buy his documentary or watch it for free online. The website is MAAFA21.com, MAFA 21. It's all about black eugenics and the history of it, and how basically Planned Parenthood is the cover for black eugenics. I mean, really, when you get down to it. And the ultra-wealthy elitists that are tax-free through their tax-exempt foundations, like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they're all funding these entities, these projects, Planned Parenthood. I mean, Bill Gates even admitted, yeah, my dad helped start Planned Parenthood. So he is a eugenicist, and we need to understand that, and understand that the black community has been targeted, and black community leaders and black people in general need to understand this. The Democratic Party has co-opted, the eugenics movement has co-opted the Democratic Party for the last 50 years, and yeah, they're trying to eradicate and or control the black community, and that's just the way it is, and we need to expose it and talk about it. It needs to be talked about. You're not going to hear any of this on MSNBC. And if you're a black politician, you can't talk about how Planned Parenthood is to eradicate black people. You can't talk about it because you won't get anywhere in politics. They'll label you a racist, and then they'll call you an Uncle Tom or something similar to that. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But we appreciate Mark Crutcher's work that he's done and his research, and it's amazing. You need to support alternative media and support these people that are actually trying to do real work. They're not funded by government bailouts. They really are, and they're putting their lives on the line when they talk about stuff like this. Believe me, the government and all these ultra-elitists that run the government and the globe, they don't want you hearing about this information, okay? So we really appreciate him, and if you didn't catch the first hour, go back and listen to it. Go to our YouTube channel and listen to the interview. It's amazing. So, Sam, what do we got on our second hour of the show today?
Stuart, we got some news, but first I want to say that, yes, MAFA 21 is very well documented. You need to go check it out. How they planned and still continue to abort black people through eugenics. But even if you're a racist and you say, that's good. I want black people dead. Think about this, people. They are using soft kill eugenics weapons against all of us. Okay, there's fluoride in the water. They will not let us label our food. The GMOs are in every processed food unless it's labeled organic. They are spraying us now with heavy metals, aluminum and barium and strontium. The list goes on and on and on, how we are under soft kill eugenics attack. That's everyone, okay? And so maybe there's not abortion clinics in the white neighborhoods as many as there are in the black neighborhoods. They're cutting right to the chase there, but we are all under attack. Realize that. Boycott these companies that are attacking us. Don't do business with somebody that's attacking you. It's a pretty simple concept.
Yeah, and before we get into some news, we just need to reiterate that abortion is killing a human being. Okay, it's not. There's nothing else that it can be called. That's what it is. It's murdering a child, and that's why I like Adam Kokesh's book Freedom, because it recognizes that children are people too. They're not property. They are children. They have souls, and abortion is killing a human. They don't, calling it a civil right, being able to kill someone and take all their rights away, that's not a civil right. They're packaging it as a civil right for women to say, oh, I have the right to choose. And they literally have brainwashed our culture into thinking that killing your own child, butchering your own child, as Mark Crutcher has said, is now great. It's okay, and it's my right to do it. It's how have we come this far in our society? We need to wake up and realize that this is about it's about eugenics as a whole, not just in the black community, but everyone. Eventually, they want all of us in mega regions due to Agenda 21, and they want us poor, destitute, and the ultra elite want to have everything, and they want us to basically be eliminated. That is the ultimate goal, and so eugenics is a huge part of that, and we need to support alternative media, because if we're gonna make it through what's gonna come to this country, because the bubble's gonna pop, folks. It's gonna pop. We might be hovering over everyone right now, but we have been killing babies for close to 50 years now. This country is going to be judged morally, so we need to get ready for it and accept that if we don't change our ways and at least speak out against this, bad things are going to come, and they're going to continue to come until we're done. This country's done.
And so how did we get so far down the line? Well, the mainstream media is lying pieces of trash. Most of them are working for the CIA. Okay? We see the mainstream media now pushing the Ebola hype, right? And they're coming out with, I think one Fox commentator said that we need to set up camps to quarantine Ebola victims in this country. Well, if the mainstream media is hyping it, it's probably a hoax or not as bad as they say it is. What they're not really talking about is the introvirus, D68. There has been 32 cases in California and 440 of these cases nationwide, and it strikes children with a rare respiratory disease that causes paralysis, and it's killing children, and you don't hear the mainstream media barely mentioning it. And so we have to talk about it on the show, because this is a real problem that the mainstream media won't tell you about.
Yeah, and they won't talk about this stuff probably because they may not be prepared for that, or that might even be more serious potentially than something like Ebola. Remember, they have a patent on Ebola, correct, Sam?
They have a few patents, I think 5 or 6.
Why would they have a patent on something?
On different strains of the virus.
Different strains of the virus, if they're not planning on using it to their benefit, weaponizing it. They're gonna do that. So Ebola is horrible and awful, and that I think that it could be potentially terrible for our society, but at the same time, they're hyping it. They're hyping it. First they weren't hyping it, now they're hyping it. Either way, Ebola is the new distraction, but it also could be very serious. But all these other viruses, these superbugs that they haven't figured out how they're killing so many people, the media is not covering those things. So I think those things are probably going to be even more serious, and that goes back to being healthy, staying fit, and making your immune system strong by eating healthy. Don't eat GMOs. Don't take those vaccines that literally shoot you up with mercury and whatever else they want. That you got to read the inserts. Okay, people that get the flu shot, I doubt that's going to help you not get the flu, because usually it just gives you the flu. That's what usually happens.
They're hyping the Ebola, and guess what? They're going to roll out the Ebola vaccine, Stuart.
And I think they're already working on a vaccine. They're gonna, like you said, they're gonna roll out a vaccine for Ebola, and I wonder who's behind that. Probably the ultra elite, Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I mean, they've been doing so much work in Africa over these last couple decades, and so we see that it's problem, reaction, solution, and the government's not going to push anything and push propaganda that won't benefit them. They will always make a decision that will benefit them, even if it might hurt them in the short term. They will benefit from it in the long run, no matter what. They will not make a decision that doesn't benefit them. So we need to be aware of that, and it's a power grab. They want people freaking out. I mean, like Sam said on Fox News, they're calling for camps.
They're calling for camps, yeah.
So just, I mean, and if it gets bad, I mean, yeah, we may have to quarantine some areas, but you can tell that they're not saying, hey, you need to be healthy, increase your immune system, and stop eating GMOs. They never talk about that, and they never talk about geoengineering. And they're just saying, oh, put them in camps if they have Ebola, and if it gets bad, we'll just figure it out when that happens. No, they're not saying eat healthy, strengthen your immune system. They're not saying any of that. So we know that it's just a power grab to take our liberties. We've seen this, and it's incrementalism. Like Joel Skousen said today on the Alex Jones show, he was talking about, Ebola probably will not be the last shoe to drop. That'll be probably one of the first to get it going, to get people scared, get the fear going, and then it'll make people think, oh, I need to get vaccinated, or I need to look to the government to help me because I might get Ebola. They're slowly rolling these things out. They're testing it. They're testing the public, see how we react. Because really, if there was a major crisis here in America, like a collapse that me and Sam always go over, we'd probably have a lot of people that would wake up pretty quick here. But they have to do it incrementally in order to get us to do what they want.
They're bleeding us out slow. That's these soft kill eugenics weapons they're using on everyone. Wake up to this fact, folks. You would think they would have a vaccine for this enterovirus. It was discovered in California in 1962. There's no vaccine for that. And like we said earlier, it's killed it has hospitalized 440 children since the summer and caused 5 deaths. And you barely hear a cricket talk about it in the mainstream media.
And only one person has died here in America from Ebola. So thousands die from the flu, these other viruses that you're talking about, that people are dying, but they're not talking about it. So Ebola is the one that they're controlling. And yes, it's terrible. It's horrible. We've seen what it does. But yeah, I think that they want to be able to control the situation.
Stuart, moving on to the drought. We have now major celebrities. Dave Mustaine of Megadeth has come out. He's tweeted. He's written an article about it, about how, yes, they are chemtrailing us. They are geoengineering us. They are spraying us. And I want to thank Dave Mustaine for coming out and saying these things, because he's speaking the truth. And we need to look in the sky, stop looking down at your cell phone, and look up at the sky and see that they are spraying us. Okay, they are spraying us with heavy metals, and it's poisoning the heck out of us, especially here in the Central Valley, where we already have bad air quality from all the other things that are on record.
Yeah, and that will tie into later what we're going to talk about, that new gas tax that's supposedly coming in January. Can these little farm towns in the valley really afford a gas tax at this point? 16 cents for every gallon or something of that nature. We're suffering bad here. And then, of course, everyone, it's like the default to just, oh, we need the government. Let's look to the government to help us. No, we need to stop supporting the government at this point and the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is paying for all this behind closed doors spraying that's going down, because they can give the money whoever they want. So these programs that are happening aren't on record, and they're all behind closed door. They're clandestine operations, and the only way they can pay for them is through the Fed. And so what we need to do is stop asking the government to help when let's say a drought happens. They're not going to do it. They'll only do things that will give them more power. All these bills that these politicians want, oh, I signed that water bill, I'm helping the community. No, you're not. You're not helping the community because you're not exposing what the real problem is.
Yeah, the mainstream media are complicit in the crimes against humanity. CNN tried to bash Dave Mustaine because he had a tiff with his advertising that he was doing with Men's Warehouse. And a tweet that he put out, and this is in 2013, Dave Mustaine tweeted, "It's aluminum oxides and barium salts. They know what cargo they're carrying. Only a fool or an accomplice would argue the unarguable." And so the informed people know it's not anything but a crime against humanity at this point. I'm going to put in the link on our YouTube. You go look at the articles yourself. There's a great summary YouTube video that they did of the Shasta County meeting that we keep talking about, where pilots, doctors, and scientists go over all the evidence of the geoengineering aerosol spraying that's going on. It's time to wake the hell up, people.
Yeah, and we need more celebrities to come out and say these things, and we don't need more Leo DiCaprios talking about how we need to, pay taxes on our air that we breathe, things like that to combat climate change, giving speeches in front of the UN. What a joke. And Dave Mustaine, he's a former, one of the greatest rock stars of all time, and he's a Christian now, and it really is fighting the New World Order, and a lot of his music is about fighting.
Now you do
establishment.
know that Dave Mustaine was a member of Metallica,
Oh,
right?
yes, we do.
Yeah, and then apparently he got kicked out of the band, and that's when he started up Megadeth.
Yeah, and just as good as Metallica, wouldn't you say?
Oh, they're bad.
they are
99 Ways to Die. Oh, okay.
But yeah, folks, do you really think a 50% unemployment town is going to be able to handle a gas tax on top of geoengineering? They're spraying us. Stop being so naive. And stop acting like and the article where they were talking about Dave Mustaine's tweets, the website, they were completely trashing him. They literally acted like he was a conspiracy theorist fool for tweeting stuff that we know is happening. We see it, and it's just amazing how people can write this stuff off. Well, hey, you know what? When you don't have any water, when you don't have any food, when you
have lung problems,
when you have lung issues. Yeah, maybe you wish that you wouldn't have just wrote people off for I don't know, trying to raise awareness about an important issue. So the trendies, well, good luck when everything falls apart.
They're having water forums. The city of Fresno is right now totally dishonest. Anybody that talks about this drought and does not address geoengineering is being intellectually dishonest, and they're bankrupt.
Yeah, I can't believe the establishment hasn't come around to this.
They're breathing it too. These people are idiots.
Yeah, and all these political ad campaigns on the radio that I hear about all these assemblymen in California. Vote for me. Blah 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 blah.
Just so plastic.
I create
and fake.
jobs. Basically,
want to throw up.
No, it's amazing how they think that they create jobs.
The government doesn't create.
Sounds like
anything.
an old song I heard. Vote for me and I'll set you free.
The government doesn't create anything but death and destruction.
Absolutely, they are the biggest threat of violence and the biggest violent. They're the biggest violence offenders in the history of the world, and currently.
Democide.
260 million people were killed by government non-combatants in the last century. So you might want to research that. So trusting our politicians to say, I create jobs. No, you don't create jobs. How about we need a politician that's going to literally say, I'm not going to do anything for you. You're going to do it for yourself. I'm going to get out of the way. That's what I want to hear. If I don't hear it from you, I'm going to vote for myself, and I'm going to continue. So if you're not about, we're supposed to serve our fellow men, and at this point, serving us would be to literally do nothing, not even go to work, because more laws are not going to help us. More victimless crimes are not going to, or victimless law crimes, laws against victimless crimes. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit amped right now, but if we have more of those, it's not going to help our society, and it's not going to help these politicians. Their job will not be available when the dollar collapses, and they're going to wish that they were humbled themselves instead of thinking that they are gods. My community needs me so much, I'm going to go make more laws and promote more government and more government assistance for everyone, and I'm going to live like a king while everyone else suffers and then also praises me. no, it's utterly ridiculous. And every politician that doesn't talk about important issues, I'm writing you off immediately.
Stuart, it's disgusting. Them and their family are breathing these aerosol sprayed nanoparticles as well, and they're damn fools. All right, they don't deserve to hold any office. They don't even deserve to have a job at this point because they're not even mentally capable of dealing with reality. They are living in an illusion, and we are here to break the mind control.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is mind control. I mean, let's get right down to it. I mean, these people really think that their job is secure. Oh, I just need to get reelected and have 4 more years. I just need to get reelected and blah, blah, blah. Look, it's not going to matter. It's all going to come down, okay? And you're going to wish that you cared about freedom and liberty, okay? Freedom and liberty. Those 2 words. Those are important, okay? And that's really the only thing that matters. Don't try to put me in jail or make a law for me that I have to abide by, but you don't have to abide by because you're an elitist, and then throw me in jail for victimless crimes, and it's just bogus. And I'm not standing for it anymore. I'm done with it.
It's mind control, Stuart. And but moving on here to, if they really cared about our health, if they really cared about the environment, why do they let the oil industry dump 3 billion gallons of wastewater into California aquifers? Because that is what has happened. Okay, and I don't agree with the Center for Biological Diversity one little bit, but at least they did a report about the poison that's being dumped in our water supply. That's beside the legal fluoride that they dump in our water supply. Some of the chemicals from the fracking industry that they dumped in our water supply here in California were high levels of arsenic, thallium, nitrates, and other contaminants from the fracking industry. And do you think anyone will get in trouble for this? I highly, highly doubt it.
Yeah, and when people look to the government, oh, we need to stop the fracking. We need it. Well, look, the government is the entity that shields all these select multinational corporations. Do you not get it? They are conspirators. They're complicit. Government is complicit. They allow these corporations to do what they want, okay? And I'm not talking about your daddy's corporation that has 50 employees that makes a couple $1 million a year. Or even more than that, even people that make tens of millions of dollars a year. We're not talking about that. We're talking about select multinational corporations, governments. They lobby for legislatures to write laws specifically benefiting them. They're all unconstitutional, but no one's going to do anything about it but complain and say, oh, government, please help the environment by shutting down these corporations. Well, you can't go to a criminal entity that's complicit in these crimes to try to get them to stop criminal actions. Okay, does that make sense, people? Folks, we got to take a quick break. I'm sorry we're amped. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Businesses, do you want to help them succeed? So do we. The Thrifty Nickel Want Ads is a family-owned business that has been a big part of the local community for over 30 years. Our goal is not only to produce a paper that is not only successful, but enduring. We are looking for experienced outside sales representatives to help grow and expand the Central Valley's favorite classified paper while creating successful marketing campaigns that will increase business for their clients. If you care about better working relationships with local businesses, then we want to hear from you. 50% commission of every new contract acquired. If interested, contact Art at thriftynickelwantads.com or call 559-472-7182.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
We all know that a natural disaster, EMP attack, and martial law are a real possibility. Prepare before the crisis because FEMA can't and won't keep you safe. Tops Military Supply. Veterans serving veterans, their families, and the community. Visit us at 605 West Shaw, Suite A, Clovis, California, or call us at 559-298-6001.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host Sam Chaney. And we're a little amped because the first hour we talked about black eugenics and abortion, and we're very against that, and we're very passionate, and we're very pro-life, because all children should be able to have the right to life. I mean, you can't just kill people and then say it's okay and make it a civil rights issue. That's not okay. That's an infringement on their Bill of Rights and their natural God-given rights. So we get a little passionate, we get a little amped, and then you throw the news on top of it. I mean, it's a snowball effect of just emotions pouring our souls out to you guys, and we appreciate our listeners. We appreciate our sponsors. We just got a couple more sponsors that We Are Change members actually helped fund the next month of broadcasting. We really appreciate that, because Sam and I, we have to do something about this, and we want everyone else to get behind us and do something about it as well, and then people will get behind you and they'll do something about it. We need to have a chain reaction of positive change that we want to see in the world, and this is how you start it. This is how you do it. But Sam, what do we got going into our second segment of the second hour?
Stuart, yeah, like I'll continue to preach. You start small with your friends and family, and you mention some issues. One of the basic ones, how we continue to preach on here, the Federal Reserve. Do you know how our money works? Because that's what you spend the majority of your time trying to do in this life, is earn a buck under their fake debt-based monetary system. And so you start there and you branch out, and you need to do your own research, and don't believe what the mainstream media is telling you. Don't believe what we're telling you. I challenge you to do your own research, okay? Go down to Fresno CMAC for $50 a year. You can have a television show on that station, okay? YouTube videos are free. You got a camera on your cell phone, on your smartphone. Almost everybody I know has a smartphone with a camera on it. You can do a video. It's time to start speaking out and taking action, because they are collapsing the system and they are killing us, all right? Stuart, the mainstream media, as we continue to say, nothing but a bunch of liars, thieves, cheats, and scumbag criminals. They're selling us the Trans-Pacific Partnership as it's some great way to save America. Wow. I mean, I got a mailer from our congressman, Devin Nunes, and he's saying how it's such a great thing. We already know what NAFTA has done to this country. It's de-industrialized our country. There are no more industrial blue-collar jobs in this country. They're not coming back. Why do you think they can lie all day long about the economic labor data? It doesn't matter. Unemployment is at record high levels, okay? Everyone knows this is the truth. There's over 90 million people not even counted in the workforce. All the numbers, all the economic data at this point is rigged beyond imagination. It's all lies. This system is coming down one way or another.
What an absolute fraud Devin Nunes is. A complete globalist supporter, globalism supporter. Just, oh yeah, let's get rid of our borders, while saying that Al-Qaeda is our biggest threat and constantly pushing the war on terror and police state. And then just continually trying to erode our liberties. But no, he's a great guy. He's a great politician, and he loves us so much. He loves the Constitution. No, he's an absolute scumbag who needs to be kicked out of office. And we're going to continue to preach that, because he's not representing me, okay? Representing multinational corporations that through these trade agreements,
the Trans-Pacific Partnership specifically,
yes,
the Transatlantic Trade Partnership. There's a couple of different ones, but how do they work, Stuart? What do they do?
Yeah, they override sovereign nations' laws, so that these, and they're written specifically for that.
For Monsanto, for example.
Yes, and so let's say Europe outlaws GMOs. Well, that trade agreement that they just signed with the United States. Oh, well now Monsanto can push all their GMOs in that country. It's not illegal anymore because it supersedes the sovereignty of that nation's laws. So it's a globalist, and remember, it's the Bilderbergers. It's a one world company is one of their agendas, one of their platforms, their objectives. One world company. Okay, really. The one world government will be a company, okay? And so that's what all these multinational corporations will be. They'll be all in one, and they're using these trade agreements to they're masquerading as a free trade. Oh yeah, we can trade freely. No, all it does is they're written specifically to benefit those multinational corporations and basically take over countries without the countries even knowing it, because they supersede the laws. The corporations that are multinational are now the government, essentially. They run the countries.
Stuart, it's disgusting. Any of these politicians, anybody from government, if the number one issue is not the Federal Reserve, the central banking debt-based monetary system, and they march around how their programs are going to fix the economy, provide jobs, they're lying. Okay, they're straight up lying. I'm sick of it, Stuart. They won't even address the root cause of our problem. Okay, and until that is fixed, nothing will ever change, and we'll just continue to be fed a steady diet of lies from these criminals.
Yeah, and people like Devin Nunes need to really start thinking about where their soul is at, okay? Because if you're willing to sell out just for a little something here and then right now, of some political points so that you can move up in the system, that system's all coming down. And once it starts to come down, you're going to wish that you didn't sell your soul, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up trying to get a spot in the elite one world government, and it ain't going to happen, buddy.
Yeah, this is the new world order.
Yeah.
Okay. All you got to do is, I have it set on my Gmail, which I probably need to get rid of. But anyway, updates, new world order. It's mainstream news. They refer to it as the new world order. Okay. Because your mainstream media here in America doesn't talk about it. It's all over print in Europe. It's in print in America, if people would read. Okay. So get over yourself. Get over that the government's going to save you. All they talk about is forming one world government, a new world order, where they're one company and you have no rights and you're a slave to them. We already are. They want to take it to the next level, and it's coming on very, very fast.
Yeah, and anyone who claims to be a so-called establishment liberal, a mainline liberal, well, if you're actually intellectual and you're actually smart and you claim to be those things, trusting government at all is very naive and stupid. So if you can talk about how, right-wing hicks are so stupid and dumb, well, you're stupid for believing that government's going to save you and government is the answer. They are the biggest criminals, and they work with the corporations you claim to hate, but they work with them. Literally, they protect them through laws that they pass, okay? And so if you're an establishment liberal and you think you're smart, you need to understand that you are not smart. You are very naive, and it's in the interest of self-preservation, you should probably start leaning towards freedom and liberty, because what a real liberal is someone who really leans towards freedom and liberty and wants more freedom and less government, okay? So don't act like voting for someone like Obama or someone who claims that they want to save the environment through government, the biggest criminal entity there is going to help anyone.
Yeah, I challenge anybody to look up democide, and that'll tell you right there what government's all about. Stuart, moving on here too. Covered California awards no-bid contracts. And as we went over on the first hour, it's not only a bailout to the insurance companies, it's a bailout to the abortion industry. Here in California, California's health insurance exchange has given $184 million in no-bid contracts.
Yeah, Mark Crutcher was talking about how Obamacare was a bailout for the abortion industry because less people are getting abortions now. But that's a side issue, even though it's very important. We could talk about that for a long time. But Obamacare, this is really just a transfer of wealth from the taxpayers to special interests. No bid contracts. So I have to pay for the people who run Obamacare.
This is your taxpayer money, but they act like it's theirs. Yes. They're the special stakeholder. They're the special ones. Baloney. It's the taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and so it's like someone stealing my money, and then they get to act like, I worked so hard for this money, I'm going to give it to my buddy. No, they're not using it correctly, because if you had to work your butt off to actually get the money, which they don't have to because government can only survive if the producers, the taxpayers, pay for them to operate. They're not using it correctly. They're giving it to whoever they want, and they're not going to be efficient with it because they didn't have to work for it. Okay? So we're not going to have a good system. That's why government doesn't operate. It doesn't function well, because they're going to get the money anyway by threat of force, no matter what. So why even function correctly? You're always going to be funded until we change our thinking and stop thinking that government is necessary. Okay? Now, when this country started and the Constitution was created, we had a pretty good system, probably the best in the world that the world's ever seen, of small government operating correctly by the people directly. But that's not how it is anymore.
Well, that's what the Constitution is, a rule book for the government to constrain them. And they don't follow it anymore. And so we are already in the North American Union. That's exactly how they're operating. Go look up what Petraeus and Pelosi and the rest of the crew have to say about it. We are in the North American Union. They just have not told the public yet, because that is exactly how they're operating. They're offering no-bid contracts to people who are implementing Covered California. It's inside crony capitalist payoffs. And it's fascism, corporatism, whatever you want to call it. It is not freedom. It is not America. It's a criminal cartel working against the American people. Wake up.
Yeah, and folks, we're under. I mean, we have presidents, past presidents, and current presidents now citing, UN resolutions to go to war. Just citing, the UN said it was okay. I can do all these things, just bypassing Congress, circumventing the Constitution. So we already are living in a one-world government. It's just we haven't dropped the ball yet completely, and that's why they want us holding up the flag and rallying around it as if we still have nationhood. And we don't, okay? Because we are under the one-world government already.
And off topic a little bit here, Stuart. They want to act like this election coming up even really matters. As long as we have electronic voting machines counting the votes, it does not matter. Because who was it? Stalin said that it doesn't matter who votes for who. It matters who counts the votes, to paraphrase.
Absolutely. And I think this election upcoming is only important in the sense that we can actually have candidates that run that will get the message out of freedom and liberty.
But it's the same false left-right paradigm game. Okay, the Democrats are bad. Well, we'll put in Republicans that are going to save us. Baloney. We've seen this game. We know this game.
Yep.
It's a bunch of garbage. They won't even let third-party, libertarian, any other third party even have a place in the debate. That's why it's a false paradigm.
Absolutely. And like we've said before, and I've said, I will only support absolute hardcore liberty lovers that will expose things like, oh, hey, George W. Bush and John Kerry were both Skull and Bones members running against each other. Things like that will expose the establishment propaganda, the complete controlled elections that we have. So that's the only purpose of an election at this point, is to literally get out there and talk about real issues. But hardly anyone's doing that. So really, like Sam said, it really doesn't matter, okay? And like Neil Kashkari, okay, we're supposed to vote for him to help the banker. He's the Republican option, like as if all he is promoting that, hey, I'll help your children, I'll save you guys, I'll save you from this mess. Neil Kashkari, you're not going to save Jack, and I don't want you to even to attempt to save anything because you're not my savior. Only we, the people, can make a difference. Change yourself first. Stop looking to politicians as if they're going to do anything for you. They're not.
Goldman Sachs engineered this financial collapse in 2008. And so how can they save us from the collapse they engineered? They can't, okay? Stuart, moving on here too. But they want to, they want to say affordable care is for your health. We are the government and we care about your health. Well, why then do they not release the price hikes that are going to increase your cost of health insurance until after the election? Because they're playing politics with your health insurance. They don't give a damn about your health. It's all about politics. It's all about the lies that they can get you to swallow.
They've actually written laws to force you to pay companies.
Oh, it's just a glitch. They say, well, the president of the free market for Americans for Prosperity said, oh, it's just a glitch.
Yeah. And we're starting to hear this. Well, we always hear this Orwellian doublespeak.
It's more than just a glitch, but no, it's not. I guess, sorry, I misquoted him.
Yeah, and it was something like, $95 a year for someone who makes $10,000 a year. You're gonna have to pay the government no matter what. Even if you don't get health insurance, you have to pay a fine. Think about it. You're paying to not have a product. That's what we've come to in this society. We have to pay a fine for not buying something. Can you think about that? I have to pay the government for not buying something
because you don't want their death insurance.
These federal debt notes. I mean, really, that's what they are. They're not worth. They're only worth something while people recognize that they're worth something. So you better start getting something of real value, and knowledge is important, and being prepared and being smart and seeing through the paradigm. That's really more important than anything. Okay, and also figure out where your soul's at, because that's going to come into play big time when this all goes down. And I mean, just the Orwellian 1984 nightmare that we live in, where the president makes and breaks laws, says things, then says he didn't say them, even though we have him on video saying it 100 times. It's unbelievable. And we're literally paying for our own enslavement. They can pass a law that is completely unconstitutional, forcing everyone to pay for a product that they don't want. And then also, if they don't buy the product, they get fined. So they have to pay for nothing. They have to pay to get no product. It's unbelievable.
It's out of this world, Stuart. The quality of care is going down. The prices are increasing. And it's going to kill the whole healthcare industry. Doctors are retiring at record numbers. People don't even want to become doctors. It's destroying the once great healthcare system that we had in this country, all to collapse it to bring in full-on socialism. I want to correct what I said about they were actually against it, the president of the Free Market Americans for Prosperity. So they're actually pointing out that it's not a glitch. I got a little excited because this stuff is just so outlandish, so Orwellian, so over the top that it's hard not to get fired up about it. Stuart, we talked last week about where are the liberals protesting Obama? Well, there were some liberals.
Yep.
I want to give them credit for it, who protested him when he came this last week to San Francisco for a Democratic fundraiser. And they were some true anti-war liberals out there protesting. I want to give them credit.
Yeah.
And they said, Obama, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. That was what they chanted outside while holding up signs of drones and talking about how he's signing off on drones, killing children overseas. And so I want to give these protesters credit for that.
Yeah, in San Francisco, the holy land for establishment liberals and trendies, literally we have real liberals.
Is that the liberal Mecca?
The liberal Mecca. That's what it is. So the so-called liberal Mecca, real liberals wouldn't support any president at this point. The last couple presidents that we've had, and like Mark Dice says, Obama. Okay, that's what his really name is. His name should be Obama. So we do appreciate these protesters coming out and really calling him out on his bull in the liberal Mecca of San Francisco. And because Obama's not a liberal, folks. So if you're a real liberal, you want real freedom and you want people to, not be, you do what you do, I do what I do, and we won't bother each other and we'll live in peace. Real liberals in San Francisco really need to start speaking out against this criminal. And hey, George Bush wasn't a good guy. He's a criminal too. We go over this all the time. That's the paradigm. Okay? Both of them are criminals.
And they're just globalist
Yes.
frontmen, puppet stooges
Yeah.
to get the public to actually think that the national election for president even means anything at this point, which it doesn't. They just sit up there as the CEO for the American arm of the New World Order and pitch us their business plan, which is the agenda to march us down the path of one world government, one company.
Folks, we got to take a quick break. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Supporting local businesses? Do you want to help them succeed? So do we. The Thrifty Nickel One Ads is a family-owned business that has been a big part of the local community for over 30 years. Our goal is not only to produce a paper that is not only successful, but enduring. We are looking for experienced outside sales representatives to help grow and expand the Central Valley's favorite classified paper while creating successful marketing campaigns that will increase business for their clients. If you care about better working relationships with local businesses, then we want to hear from you. 50% commission of every new contract acquired. If interested, contact Art at thriftynickeloneads.com or call 559-472-7182.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
We all know that a natural disaster, EMP attack, and martial law are a real possibility. Prepare before the crisis because FEMA can't and won't keep you safe. Tops Military Supply. Veterans serving veterans, their families, and the community. Visit us at 605 West Shaw, Suite A, Clovis, California, or call us at 559-298-6001.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. I am your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Chaney. We're going into our last segment of our second hour, the last segment of our broadcast. This is crunch time. It's the fourth quarter, and we've been ranting and raving like we always are. But you know what? I don't care. We're passionate, and these are real issues that we're covering, and they're important. We're trying to get you fired up. We're trying to get you fired up about freedom and liberty, because once you get past all the conditioning and mind control and the paradigms that they have set up for you, the left-right paradigm, all the propaganda, once you get past it, and it takes time, but once you get past it, you mentally, you see clear, and it's a beautiful thing. And then you can start really fighting some tyranny and doing some real work. Sam, what do we got for our last 15 minutes of the show?
Well, we got the increased gas tax to pay the state more money to be able to get around and get to your job, to pay more taxes, to pay more for gas money. I mean, it's an endless loop of scams and theft, because taxation is theft. They are now proposing, which I'm sure will pass. I mean, it's going to go up. They're going to add 16 cents to the already 76 cents per gallon of gas tax in the state of California. So you're going to be looking at the beginning of next year, January 1, paying 92 cents on every gallon of gas you buy to the state of California to tell you about how great they are as they poison us, kill us, and promote abortion all day.
Yeah, and if we get through this 16-cent increase, I'll be amazed if we don't if they can push this on us and us really let this go down, let this happen, because people are going to start having to really carpool. I mean, it's going to happen. People are not going to be able to get to work. Really. This is part of Agenda 21. They want us out of our cars in the mega regions, out of your personal vehicle. They want you under their control, and they're just going to tax you to death. Power to tax is the power to destroy. And a lot of people, are we really going to take it, folks? We'll see what happens this next year when Obamacare is fully implemented, when this gas tax is implemented. California is not going to be able to make it. We can't even produce crops now, hardly, because of the drought. And they're, like Sam said, they're attacking us at all levels, everywhere. They're spraying us. So let's see how much more of this we can take without saying, you know what, I'm done. And we're just encouraging them to say, hey, let's say that right now so that we're more prepared when this actually goes down to fight it. We can't just keep waiting. They're doing it incrementally and destroying our will.
They're bleeding us out slow, just like they did to that poor girl at that abortion clinic in Illinois. They're bleeding us out slow, Stuart. But at least we have, and I want to give credit to Jim Patterson. He's out there holding town hall meetings about this issue, because the California Drivers Alliance found that 70% of Californians were unaware that this new gas tax was even going to take effect. And so I want to give Jim Patterson credit. He's out there at least trying to raise public awareness in Fresno.
Yeah, and Jim Patterson's also been speaking out against Agenda 21 and the Endangered Species Act and the forest, shutting down the forests. And then Obama, here's another article that we were going over. Obama just said, 350,000 acres in Southern California, although that's now a national monument. But that's a side issue. We'll go over in a little bit. But Jim Patterson, yes, we need more politicians that are at least willing to hold a meeting and say, hey, this is bad. We need to be against this. And he's even admitted it's a supermajority. He's not going to be able to get anything done. But he realizes that he's not going to get anything done. So the only thing he can do is speak out against it constantly while he's in a position of some sort of authority given to him by the people. I mean, he needs to really cover these issues, and he has been. And I'm not seeing many other politicians in the state of California doing that.
No, he's definitely stepping up for Fresno to try to raise public awareness about important issues, and he needs to be thanked for that. We need to support the politicians that are actually trying to do something for the people instead of trying to run their own private crony scams on everybody, which the majority of them in the state are. I mean, what was it? Leland Yee. How many of them now?
I don't know.
On felonies?
15% of the assembly or the legislature? 15% of the legislators just under investigation or indicted or something. It's just, they're criminals. Like you said, they're their own crony little
their own crime
scam
syndicate they're running against us. But Stuart, moving on here to more about oil. Most Americans think that the majority of our oil comes from Saudi Arabia. That is not the case. Where the majority of our oil comes from is from Canada, actually.
Wow.
It's imported from Canada.
Wow, and
The second largest amount is imported from Saudi Arabia.
yeah, and the Saudis, we obviously have some. There's a relationship that goes way deep with the United States and the Saudi Arabians.
They're in the same satanic cult. They're Luciferian worshipers.
I would agree with that. The elites of those countries are really they're into some evil stuff. And the 28 pages, are we going to see them from 9/11? Saudi Arabia was involved, and we basically know that because congressmen have actually just basically implied it. And so it's just amazing. We can't even drill for our own oil here. And gas is going up. When this gas tax is implemented, I think that's the reason. Maybe that's the reason why gas has been lower.
Well, that's what
lately.
I was going to say, Stuart.
Yeah,
That's why they're sneaking in this gas tax now, which they'll never repeal it.
Yeah,
gas prices are down, and here's 5 reasons from Zero Hedge: the U.S. oil boom, the shale. Oil boom that's been going on, that's increased a little bit of production. Libya is back in the oil producing market. OPEC infighting has broken their cartel strangle grip a little bit. Negative European economic outlook, and lower Asian demand for oil. And so that's 5 reasons why we see lower oil prices now, and we see the state of California taking full advantage to sneak in that 16 cents gas tax on top of the 76 cents that's already on the books. And when gas prices rise, will they repeal this tax? Hell no, they won't. They'll probably put another tax on top of it.
Yeah, the problems that they create, they'll just ask for more power and more money to create more problems to then ask for more power.
Where does this money go? Our roads are falling apart in this state. I mean, drive down 99 freeway, the road is literally falling apart.
At some point, we need to ask ourselves, what are we actually paying for? I mean, we're literally
paying for our own death and destruction.
Yeah, we're paying for our own enslavement.
For them to advertise Obamacare, push the propaganda down our throat, tell us how great they are all day. We're paying for propaganda to destroy our mind, break the mind control.
Yeah, there's $1 million here to Obamacare to promote covered California with Richard Simmons doing some hour-long, absolutely ridiculous
it's total
commercial.
Nonsense.
It is, and we're paying for it, and eventually we're going to have to just ask ourselves, wow, we have literally been screwed. They literally, the government steals your money, your labor. They are the biggest thief of all time ever created. They do it masquerading like they have the authority to do it. And they are the biggest mafia, and we're going to just accept it. And like Sam said, they're going to try to sneak it in there. Okay. And so you see the gas prices, they're pretty low. They've been the lowest they've been in the last, I don't know, probably 6 months that I've seen. And I've been kind of wondering why. And, that gas tax is going to be implemented January 1st. And Sam's right. They're never going to repeal it. They will never do something to give them less money and less power. They will always, even in the short term, if it might keep them from getting money or power, but they will always set up something that in the long term will get them more control that they had previously.
It's out of this world, Stuart. Let me just mention the top of this pyramid is the Rothschilds, the Queen of England. We need to be looking at them. Anybody in America that is pro-Britain is a traitor. I mean, that's why we fought a revolutionary war against the British crown, okay? Yeah. To be independent of them. But they've crawled back in. They've taken over our banking system with the central bank. They now rule us. Wake up to that fact, people.
Yeah, remember Piers Morgan, the redcoat, that scumbag that was pushing gun control? Yeah, we woke up to that, but that's just one television host, okay? And he was just awful anyway, regardless. I mean, his content of his show was terrible. Not to mention he was pushing every anti-American agenda seen on television, basically, at that point. And we woke up to that and we kicked him out. But they have control of our money. Okay, and I think it was a Rothschild that said, if we have a control of a nation's money supply, I care not who writes the laws. It doesn't even matter because you can inflate.
They can buy them off.
They can buy them off. They can print money and give it to the money that the Fed creates, folks. We act like it's like the government's handling everything. No, it's a private corporation that can dish out whatever they want above the law. They are the Federal Reserve Act is written so that the Congress, all they can do is abolish it. They have to abolish it in order to have any control over it. They can ask questions. The Federal Reserve Chairman doesn't have to answer. It's above the law.
Yeah, that's what Alan Greenspan said.
And James Corbett went over that last week with us, and you should check out his work, CorbettReport.com. He's very knowledgeable about the Federal Reserve, and we need to wake up to that because it all comes down to money. Money we use it every day. It controls. It's a huge part of our lives. A valued medium that we exchange for goods. That's how we operate. That's how we function every day. Is money, some sort of money. Doesn't have to be paper, but it's some sort of barter, money, currency. It matters so much. It's so important.
The private central bank is what has corrupted our constitutional republic. Wake up to that fact. Stuart, hear more about the Agenda 21 land grabs that's going on. About half of the San Gabriel Mountains are to become a national monument under Obama through an executive order that he issued last Friday. And so this is going to be 350,000 acres of public land that are going to be designated a national monument. And so it's all rosy and looks great. Obama cares about making national monuments. Well, what they're not telling you is that when the public eye's off of this and the praise is over for Obama, how great of a leader he is for designating national monuments, they're going to designate this land off use for public use. And so that's one of the many ways that they're limiting public access to public land. Another big one is the Endangered Species Act, but this is one that they just did last Friday in the San Gabriel Mountains in Southern California.
Yeah, and it's illegal. The president can't just go, oh, yeah, I'm going to designate this off limits. No, that's not how it works.
Without congressional approval.
Without congressional approval.
It was an executive order.
And at least through Congress, you could argue that, even though that's still unconstitutional, I believe, even if Congress approved it, but you can still argue, the Congress represents the people. That's how we that's how we make laws. I understand that. But still, at this point, the Congress is bought off too, and it doesn't even, they're just all for show. It's political theater. The Congress, almost every vote they take now is unconstitutional. I mean, foreign aid, that's unconstitutional. You're stealing my property, my labor, and giving it to select special interests or just dictators of other countries that you control and put in. Unbelievable. And it just baffles me. When are we going? Is Obama going to have to designate the Central Valley a national monument so that no one can live here, and so that then we'll finally figure out, this is Agenda 21. No, they're going to keep spraying us until we leave because there's no work, there's no food, there's nothing. It'll be a wasteland here. And that's how they'll get us out into the mega regions. But they're already setting up stuff. They're already setting up areas. Oh, you can't use this, you can't use that. The federal government, I believe, owns most of, is the biggest landowner entity in the United States. Federal government.
They act like they own it.
I believe so.
Not legitimately, though. It's
absolutely
it's the
not.
Public's land.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, it's out of this world, Stuart. And never forget, Monsanto has aluminum-resistant GMO seeds already patented, ready to roll out after they destroy the soil with the aerosol spraying programs that are going on. Okay? I challenge anyone out there to look up these facts. Moving on here, Stuart, to the NSA. This is from whistleblower William Binney. He's famous. He's been all over the mainstream now. And he's concerned, and so am I, about the NSA's use of parallel construction. That's where law enforcement takes data that they gathered without a warrant and tries to use that in court cases against people. And it's basically perjury because it's made up data at this point. We can't trust anything that they put forth as being credible and truthful and honest. It's all a giant fraud hoax being used to persecute the American people.
Back to paying for our own enslavement. We pay for the NSA, we pay for police, and they are enslaving us. And they're basically, it's weird to not support it at this point. You're like, oh, you don't support cops? What are you, for criminals? I mean, it's
for national security.
And then the NSA,
national security.
Remember, they have to, they even disclosing that
but
you're disclosing.
They don't stop any terrorist attacks. They didn't stop 9/11. They didn't stop any of these other terrorist attacks. So where's all the big high security of stopping these attacks? Why do you have to spy on me and the rest of America?
Absolutely. So let's just say let's give up every single liberty we have to the NSA and say you can spy on everyone, you can control all of us.
They already are.
They already are, right?
all unconstitutional, all illegal, all felonies. Every time they do it, they are committing crimes against humanity, against America.
And so as we give up our liberties, there should be no excuse, absolutely no excuse that anything bad could ever happen ever, because the NSA is constantly spying on everyone constantly, illegally. So if
Big Brother is God.
If a bomb goes off, the
NSA's fault.
It's the NSA's fault because they're already spying on everyone illegally. They can stop it, but guess what? They don't want to because it's not
when our
about
borders are wide open.
Exactly. They know where all the terrorists are. They
know where all the drugs are.
Exactly. They know where everything is. They literally can monitor everything. The entire basically a whole country's entire phone conversations. They can store them and track everyone in an entire country. So they have godlike power, but yet bad things still happen. And then we still have to give up more liberties. No. We're not buying it. It's all a fraud and it's illegal. And so that's why we can't just say, I have nothing to hide, because if you say that, well, then why can't I just set up a camera in your house? And why not just live in it? How about just get like Paul Joseph Watson? Hey, just give me your email password then. Oh, well, you have nothing to hide.
Your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. Just because the government says, we're here to help you. No, that's not a reason. You're being naive. And if the NSA is really as great as they say they are and that we need to fund them, well, then nothing ever should happen. We shouldn't even be worried about a nuclear attack at all because they have godlike powers.
No,
right?
They know they're wrong. That's why they're militarizing the police, arming to the teeth against the American people. It's totally wrong, criminal, corrupt, beyond imagination. Stuart, there's school districts now getting semi-automatic weapons, automatic weapons from the decommissioned from the military. It is out of control. Okay, there's no more. This is not conservative. This is a criminal takeover of America. Wake the hell up, people.
Exactly. It is a takeover, and we know who's running it, and we need to speak out against it.
They're rolling out a hot takeover right now in front of our eyes. Will you wake up before they put you and your family in a grave?
Wake up, take action, be the change you want to be, and be the change you want to see in the world. And if you don't do it, we're going to lose everything. Be in the arena of life, folks, okay?
It is not conservative to bow to government.
Peace, love, and liberty. Good night.
This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno.